We're back out here at the Big Lake once again, and today we're talking about 4 sneaky good presentations that you don't want to miss out on this December. And spoiler alert, none of them are a jerkbait. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one. There we go, I got him. On the Waco rig. Ooh. That's a nice one. That's a nice one, kids. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and it's a beautiful day here at the Big Lake. It's warm, it's sunny, there's just a little bit of wind. Now what does that mean? Well, it means that there's going to be a lot of boaters out. There's going to be a lot of anglers out, and they're going to be putting pressure on this already heavily fished lake. So as we move deep into winter, and there's not many chances left to have a beautiful day before things really start to get cold, even here, you're going to get anglers that are going to come out of the woods, put the rifles and the bows down, and they're going to spend some time in the water when they can. And it also means that they're going to be throwing a lot of the same types of presentations. And it's a lot like YouTube anglers, isn't it? We make our monthly videos. The month of December, this is the list of baits you've got to have. And that's not a bad thing, but every single one of those lists is going to have a jerkbait on it, isn't it? Now, a jerkbait is a fine December presentation. In fact, it's probably the most recognized all-around universal winter bait, regardless of what area of the country that you're in. Whether you're way up north, where you might be throwing a blade bait or a jigging bait right now, well, you're still going to have a jerkbait tied on somewhere. And even here in the deep south, a jerkbait is going to be in your arsenal. And there's a reason for that. They work. But the other day, I was reminded of something very crucial, and that is stand out, be different, throw something those bass are not looking for, something they haven't seen. I encountered a gentleman. He was fishing from the bank, and he had a jerkbait tied on, pretty much like this one. It was a very similar color. I don't think it was a Berkeley Stunner, though. I think it might have been an H2O Express. But either way, he was fussing that he hadn't even gotten a sniff all day. He was getting no bites, and he hadn't gotten bites in days. It's like the fish just shut off. And I asked him, well, what are you fishing? And he said, well, he's primarily fishing with a jerkbait. And I said that, well, did you think that other anglers might be using a jerkbait too? Everybody out here might be using a jerkbait, and that's the reason why those bass have kind of shut down on that particular bait. They've gotten used to it. And remember, like we've talked about before, those bass will get wise to a bait much more quickly than you think they will. It's something that bass do. So those bass want to eat, and they need to be smart enough to be able to decipher which is fake and which is real. Otherwise, the bass population would seriously die out very quickly. So the key is to show them something they haven't seen, right? Something we talk about in spring and summer, but it really especially applies right now. So I've got 4 presentations in no particular order that I want to share with you guys that have really worked very well for me. And these are not strange things. These are not out of left field things. These are things that you've seen me use and you've seen me have success on. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one right here. And to nobody's surprise, it's going to be the little Ned rig, right? A Ned rig can be a fantastic finesse presentation as we move deeper into the winter. As a matter of fact, finesse presentations are going to be the dominant way to catch bass as the colder it gets. Those bass, when it gets cold, they're going to slow down. They don't want to exert as much energy. They would rather just sit there and do nothing. But if something comes along, a little tiny morsel like this little Berkeley minnow, which I think is a drop shot bait actually, but I've been using it on this little Ned bait. If something like this comes along and stares them right in the face, well, they're not going to be able to resist that, And you can see I've got this on my spinning setup, 10-pound braid, my spinning reel, 7-foot medium or medium light rod. And I'm just taking this old, Bass Pro XPS Ned head that's got the teardrop shape with the good line tie on it. And, I'm just Texas rigging. That's all I'm doing. Just popping it in there just like that. And I'm having no problem coming through the weeds at all. And, as you guys have seen in the last video that I did about these, they work really well. They come through the thick stuff and they also catch fish. So it's something, if you're able to, even if you don't have a large amount of vegetation, perhaps a regular type of Ned bait, slow that presentation down and make it smaller. A Ned rig right now, especially if you have a bare bottom lake, if you've got hard bottom, if you've got clay, sand, or gravel, or something like that, that you can really fish a Ned rig on, I'm telling you, right now is going to be a fantastic time to do it. And from what I can tell, there's not a lot of anglers who are doing it right now. So don't sleep on a Ned rig. Now, next up, we've got another one that's an old friend of the channel, and that is this guy right here. You know what this is. This is the Waco rig. I've got a regular Yum Dinger here, and I've got a 1/16 ounce nail weight embedded in the body right here. And I've got it on a 1/0 EWG light wire hook. And the point of this is, as we've said before, is to get this to fall in the water like that, where it looks very much like a wacky rig as it falls through that water column. And I get tore up on this. And it's such a different type of presentation. I can fish this in the thickest slop where I would never think about fishing a wacky rig, and I can come through cleanly, and I'm able to get the bites that I would normally not be able to fish a wacky rig in, even though I would want to. So if you've not tried the Waco rig, I'm telling you, give this a try. I guarantee you nobody else on your lake is doing this, unless, of course, they watch this channel. You never know, though. But if they are throwing something like this, I'm telling you, they're having a lot of success with it because, it stands out, it's slow, it's something that those fish want, and you can put this in places that you wouldn't be able to fish a regular wacky rig. There is that plus. So, as we said, show them something different, but it's got to be versatile. It's got to be something that you can do more than one thing with. That way, you can maximize your efficiency and your time out on the water, especially when space is at a premium. If you're a bank angler, you can only carry 1 or 2 rods. Well, this needs to be one of them because you can fish this quite a lot of ways. And believe me, this little guy casts a mile. It may only have a 1/16 ounce nail weight in it, but I'm telling you what, I can really bomb this thing out there. So even if you're working from the bank and you're trying to reach a little bit deeper water, or if you're fan casting from the bank all the way around, I'm telling you, this right here is a presentation you definitely don't want to sleep on. And now next up, we've got an old winter favorite here on the channel, and that is the lowbrow rig. You guys started calling this the lowbrow rig last year, and it's a swim jig I've taken the skirt off of, and I've got a 3.25-inch Rage swimmer on here, and this is the juice. I have caught so many fish since I started doing this. Again, a lot of the things that I'm doing are geared more toward heavily vegetated fisheries, heavily pressured fisheries. But just because, you might not have a thick grass or thick vegetation in your particular fishery, I'm sure you've got timber, I'm sure you've got laydowns and other structure you don't necessarily want to get hung up on, and you want to have something that comes through nice and clean. And that's where this little guy comes in. Fishing a swim bait in the wintertime is a great way to catch fish. It's a silent presentation, especially if you're slow rolling it. It doesn't matter if you're using a Rage swimmer, doesn't matter if you're using a Kitech, doesn't matter if you're using something like the Yum Scottsboro swim baits, they all work exceptionally well on this particular setup. And I can't tell you how many fish I've caught with this rig. I've started already using it again this year, and it's already starting to pay dividends for me. It's something different, just something different enough to get those fish's attention, And again, I can go right through the thickest slop with this, which is the best part. I can fish this in shallow water. I can fish this in deep water. I can fish this from the boat. I can fish this from the bank. Either way, I can use this in any situation and still be able to catch the fish that I want to fish. And I'm not having any problems fishing it. So again, this is another sneaky good presentation you really don't want to sleep on. And it's something else nobody on your lake is going to be throwing, unless they're viewers of this channel. Now lastly, This one here may be a little bit out of left field for some people, and that is, well, topwater. I am still getting topwater bites, even though that water in my area is probably down to about 65 degrees, 63 degrees in some spots. Even though for this lake, those are winter temperatures and those bass are starting to act accordingly, I can still get some bites on topwater. Now, they aren't busting on it and blowing up on it where I'm catching 15 or 20 fish a day on just one topwater bait, but when used in conjunction with some of the other presentations that I have, like I said, I want to keep things varied. I want to keep those bass guessing, and topwater is another great way to do that. I've seen, especially after something like a shad dive or a shad kill, right? We have an exceptionally cold night or exceptionally cold snap, and those younger shad, those sicker shad, they just die off in droves and they're just floating on the top of the water. Today there was actually quite a bit of that out there, which is why I've got this tied on. I can work this slowly and acting much like a wounded or injured bait fish. But again, that's not the only type of topwater that I'm working, that I'm having success with. Something like this little chug bug, something subtle, something a little bit more quiet. Those boy howdies that I'm working with, a lot of times I can get bit with the tail weighted ones over the prop ones, but something soft like this little chug bug, this has been a money player for me. And again, this is not something that somebody else is throwing. As a matter of fact, when other anglers see me throwing topwaters, I always get that look like, are you crazy? What are you doing? But I'm catching fish on them. And it's not just in my lake. I'm telling you, even as far north as the Midwest, as the upper Midwest, Indiana, Illinois, northern Missouri, all the way up into southern Iowa, all the way up into New York, you can still get bites on this. If you've got open water and it's got some sun exposure to it, you've got some exposed sun, and you've got some open water that's not iced over just yet, nice and shallow, but it still gets some sun so it has a chance to warm up, I'm telling you, it's going to have some fish in it, and those fish are still going to want to chase topwater. Like I said, vary up your presentation, but be efficient. Try to maximize what you have in your arsenal so you can cover as many different types of situations. And a jerkbait is a fine presentation, and even a weightless soft plastic jerkbait. I'm going to have one of those tied on. But at the same time, I don't want to throw what everybody else is throwing. I want to show those bass something different. I want to keep them guessing and keep them on their proverbial toes. And that's the best way to keep those bites coming in an otherwise really hard time of the year. I mean, let's face it, dead of winter can be the hardest time of the year to get bass because those fish have shut down. A lot of anglers are talking about September being the hardest time of the year. And maybe for some places, but for us here in the South, I gotta say December can probably be the toughest time of the year to get bites because those fish, they fed up for the winter, they're fat off of shad, so they're not necessarily hungry. They just want to sit there and wait until the spring comes in. So if you put something small and tiny in front of their face, I'm telling you, they're not going to turn it down. So show them something different and maximize your efficiency on the water, and you will still be able to get some nice bites all the way through the winter. So there you have it. Different types of baits and presentations not every other angler is throwing. And as we've talked about, those can be some of the biggest keys to success, especially in the winter when those bass are slow and lethargic. And every tool that we can have, every little advantage that we can create for ourselves is just another way to be efficient on the water and eke out a few more bites. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.